Welcome to Transformative Talks, an intentional wellness podcast dedicated to education, enlightenment, and empowerment through meaningful connection. Through thoughtful conversations with fellow wellness and holistic practitioners, we explore the many pathways to well-being. Each episode is designed to expand understanding, spark curiosity, and offer practical insights you can integrate into your everyday life. Our intention is to inspire your own positive transformation and support you in creating a more empowered life. Welcome back to Transformative Talks. So we're going to have a really good episode today, I think. This is actually the first installment of the Mental Health Matters series, which mental health, for what I do, they're so heavily intertwined. So it just seems natural to dive into this aspect of holistic wellness. A vital part of our overall well-being is mental health. And the way we understand and support it have grown tremendously. Sometimes we need a gentle boost to get through the day, and other times we benefit from longer term support as we navigate life's bigger challenges. In this series, we'll explore the many tools, resources, and supports the mental health world has to offer, and how you can access them in ways that feel empowering and aligned. So join Ethany and I for open, compassionate conversations that remind you that support is always available and you don't have to walk your path alone. So it's just a little sum up of what the series is about. So I would really love to introduce Ethany. So go ahead and tell us who you are, what you do.
My name is Ethany Michaud. I am a somatic therapist. First of all, I just opened a private practice on the northwest side of Indianapolis. So I'm seeing clients individually, usually for things like trauma, grief, relational stress, depression, anxiety. That's kind of mostly what I work with specifically, and addiction. And so those are kind of my main focus areas. I will say most of my caseload has some sort of trauma in their lives that is like impacting their functioning, impacting their relationships, their work, their whatever it is that's coming up for them. And I identify as a somatic therapist because I am certified in Brainspotting, which is pretty similar to both EMDR and myofascial release massage therapy in slightly different ways. A lot of people have heard of EMDR, but haven't maybe heard of Brainspotting specifically. So I hope to talk a little bit about those differences today. So I am a licensed clinical social worker. You can kind of become a therapist a few different tracks. You can go the psychology track or the social work track. I chose social work mostly because it is more holistic. We look at a lot of different aspects of people's lives on the social work side of things, and that kind of pulled me that direction. Yeah, so I am the owner of Circle City Alliance Therapy and Consulting. I am seeing clients individually, and then I do provide supervision for baby therapists, up and coming baby therapists.
So one of the reasons I was really excited to have Ethany on today is because I've known her for 2 or 3 years now, something around there. And initially, when I moved to the area, I didn't have any sort of like referral partners. I was just kind of building clients from scratch. And mental health professionals are really good partner for what I do. It seems kind of like divine placement, like where I ended up with my office. It was just a few offices down from where she was at the time. And I went in and I was like, hey, this is what I do. I was kind of curious if you're interested in like, having referral partnership. And she was just so open to the type of work that I did. And it just flows so naturally. So I'm very grateful that you were open to letting me into the mental health circle that you had going on there. And like she said, she just opened up her own private practice. So congratulations for that. I'm like super excited that you've headed in that direction.
Thanks. Yeah. And I remember when you first reached out, I was so excited because I had been looking for a massage therapist that specialized in MFR, and you just like appeared out of nowhere. It was so amazing. I'm like, oh,
Divine
this is
timing, I'm
fabulous.
telling you.
Yeah. I've been looking for you this whole time. It was really great. Perfect timing.
Yeah. So over the years, it just feels like we've had a really nice referral partnership, and then that's developed into like friendship as well. So,
Yeah.
and we both definitely geek out about mental health and somatics and things like that. So, one thing I wanted to ask you because I think this is a term that is being thrown around a lot recently, and not a lot of people truly know what it means. So, what does the term trauma informed mean?
Yeah, so I think it's a little different for everybody, but for me, being trauma informed is kind of using like a lens to see things through. It's like putting on a specific pair of glasses that helps you see things in a different light. So that's kind of how I like to explain it. Being trauma informed, similarly to what I was just kind of explaining about being a social worker versus going the psychology track, it feels more holistic again. I think from a trauma-informed lens, I'm more aware of how a specific event may impact someone physically, emotionally, socially, and people don't really realize, "Oh, I didn't even know that could come from my mental health or from a traumatic event that happened 20 years ago. There's no way I would assume that that is suppressing my appetite now or keeping me up at night now. How is that the case?" And I'm like, well, if I put on my little glasses here and look at you through my trauma informed lens, I can kind of see that, that tree and how it all kind of connects a little bit easier. So, yeah, it's more of a multifaceted lens to see just the whole person through, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think you bring into it when you're looking at things from that perspective, you're bringing into it a little bit of a different intention as well.
Definitely.
So you're a little bit more careful about making sure the person isn't being triggered during a session. That being said, I know we were talking about parasympathetic nervous system as well. So that's another thing I think a term that gets thrown around a lot. So could you explain a little bit about fight and flight?
Yes. So, this is probably a good time to talk about like the different levels of our brain. So there are different consciousness levels of our brain from the sciencey standpoint. I think from more of like a spiritual standpoint, that's a little bit different, but from a therapeutic standpoint, we know that there are kind of three main areas, and that's kind of where I work within and around. So we're going to call the attic the neocortex. It's more of like your frontal lobe. This is our thinking brain. It's where we use language, we analyze problems. Logic is up here. This is the part of our brain that's not quite there until we're about 25. You get your full brain when you're around 25 on average. A traditional like talk therapy lives up here in the front. And so, yeah, it's good for building insight. We make connections like, "Oh, that makes sense, right? If this happened, then maybe I should feel this or could feel this way about it." That makes logical sense. So logic is up here in the front. And that's the attic. The main floor is the limbic system. So this is like where fight or flight kind of lives. It's kind of in the it's like midbrain, right? So the main floor of your house. It's where our smoke detector, the amygdala, resides, and it tells us if we are safe or if we are in danger. Now, we can't really think with this part of our brain very well. So it's not like, "Hey, amygdala, we are in danger right now. You should activate, the parasympathetic nervous system now so that we can escape danger." It doesn't really work that way. It's more of an automatic process. It will kind of trigger your body's fight or flight response. And so even if the addict isn't aware that there's danger near, your midbrain, your limbic system might still kind of pick up on things and say, "Hey, this doesn't feel very safe right now. We should probably freak out about it." And so that's kind of the main floor. And then the basement is our subcortex. This is the reflexive brain. It controls our survival instincts, our physical body. So this is where trauma and like the chronic tension kind of stuff is stored. If we use like a computer example, it's kind of like the hard drive. We really can't think with this brain. It is not an online like part of our consciousness at all, but unfortunately trauma is stored there. And so that's why sometimes people are like, "I don't know why I keep feeling this way when there's nothing happening around me." And so when the deep brain, the basement, the subcortex is triggered, the whole body responds, right? So the rest, it's like bottom up. The entire body responds. Our midbrain is like, "Oh my gosh, it's happening. We are in danger. We were right this whole time." And then your consciousness is just
It's the last to catch up.
It
with
is.
this whole process.
It is the last to catch up, unfortunately, and it's hard to understand, why this is happening in the first place or what's going on. And so, yeah, that fight or flight response, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, we do need our bodies to operate this way. And I'm very grateful that I have all the different levels, the attic, the main floor, the basement, because they help keep us all safe, right? It's why I've learned not to touch a hot stove. It's why I know what my boundaries are around me and how to keep myself safe, because the deep brain just knows that stuff inherently. And then my midbrain is kind of always alert and checking out the surroundings and that sort of thing. And then obviously we have our consciousness too. So they do help keep us safe. And in a lot of cases, it works for people. And sometimes it stops working after a while, or it develops into something worse
Mhm.
where even when we are safe, we feel like we're not. And so the fight or flight response is your body's natural way of trying to keep you safe and alert you to danger. But sometimes, unfortunately, it can go a little too far.
Yeah. So I really think it's important for people to at least have a basic understanding of this because I think having that awareness allows us to reframe things from frustration that we can't control the situation to trying to understand how our brains are trying to keep our bodies safe.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, like, if you're not aware of the processes, if you're not aware what's going on, how can you even begin to start to do things to change it for yourself? Whether it's, just consciously trying to come into the present moment or like going and getting mental health counseling or going and getting somatic work. If you don't understand why your brain's doing that, you're kind of at a disadvantage, I think. And I think a lot of people
Yeah.
now are beginning to be aware, but just like
Mhm.
getting little inklings of what's actually happening. So I love how you explained it like
Yeah.
that and broke it down into like super identifiable terms. Like this makes sense that it cascades down in that way.
Sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There is a lot more awareness of this stuff. I think social media has helped a lot with people learning, hey, this could be a symptom of trauma. I had no idea. The word trauma has unfortunately been kind of thrown around out there too a lot. Not everything is trauma. And then on the other end, some things that we wouldn't think would be very traumatizing do impact our deep brain or our midbrain in a way that we wouldn't expect. And so it can be a lot. It can be confusing, but luckily there's the stigma around seeking mental health treatment is lessening every day, and people are more and more aware of what's going on. It's hard when you can't think with your subcortex. It's the thing in your body that tells your heart to beat, right? And you
Yeah.
don't have to sit there and say, "Okay, beat, beat, beat." It just does it. And so
It's
it's
useful
hard
for sure.
feeling that. It's thank you, brain, for doing that. I appreciate you. But yeah, it's hard to kind of conceptualize that unconscious part of our brain. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people miss some of the symptoms for sure.
Yeah. One thing I tell a lot of my clients is when you get into those parts of the brain and they're activated, like it doesn't say, this is a big trauma. This is a little trauma. This one's more important than this one. It just understands that we're not safe right now, or there's something, some sort of
Yeah.
signal that it's getting that that safety is in danger.
Absolutely. It it doesn't always compute as clearly as we would like for it to. And I will say too, traditional talk therapy stays very much in the attic. It stays in the neocortex part of our brain, and that can be difficult for some people. For some people that is all they need. They don't have, some deeper issues that are being stored in their body. They just have more of a logical thing they need help kind of processing through, and that's great. Fortunately, traditional talk therapy like cognitive behavioral therapy, it stays right up here, and so it never reaches where it needs to go for a deeper processing.
Yeah, you can't create change.
Exactly. I mean, not any lasting change. You can do a lot with it. Don't get me wrong. I still do talk therapy often, but to really get to the root of the problem, we have to kind of bypass the frontal lobe a little bit.
You talked about how brain spotting has some similarities to EMDR and myofascial release. Can you go into some of those similarities?
Absolutely, yes. So, ever since meeting Chelsey, I'll talk about MFR first. I was very excited to partner with her because it's such a complimentary service. And I had clients that were asking, like, what else can I be doing? Right? I'm very motivated. I really want to get better faster. I want to feel more connected to my body. And MFR was just kind of a natural next step or additional step on for their treatment plans because it is so similar. So I use brain spotting. My technique works with the nervous system, just like MFR does. But with brain spotting, we use eye positioning. And so I use a pointer that I move across the room that I have people just kind of track with their eyes only. So no moving their head around too much, just kind of get comfortable and kind of track this pointer across the room. There are going to be multiple spots that we find. And so when I'm working with a client for the first time, I actually did this for the first time with a new client today. I'm kind of guiding them like, okay, one side of the room may feel more comfortable than the other. Totally normal. Side of the room may feel really uncomfortable, or it may make you feel like you need to cry and you may not know why, and that's okay. And so there's a brain spot, and then or multiple brain spots, and then there are resource spots as well. So using the example of this morning, my new client, that person's resource spot was looking slightly down to their left. And every time I would bring the pointer to their right, their whole body reacted. And so we see these reflexes, essentially, is probably the best way to put it. Some people will twitch, some people will like physically recoil from it, from their brain spot. Some people just immediately laugh or immediately cry. Or they'll see like weird visual effects around the pointer. They'll say it looks like it's on fire. A lot of people say it looks like a marshmallow that you've just taken out of the fire and it just has this glow around it. We'll have a lot of kind of nervous system reactions. And so weird facial expressions, or people will blink a lot or take a deep breath. Those are the things that I'm looking for when I'm doing brain spotting. Now, sometimes we will intentionally sit in the resource spot where things are much more calm, things are very light, easy. Most people feel like taking a nap after they've been there. They've just been kind of lulled into this like almost meditation like state. It's very calm over there. The brain spot, unfortunately, not calm. It is not calm. It's not very fun to go to. And it is also very healing to hang out over there. So it kind of, when we get your eye positioning sort of lined up exactly where it needs to go, we can kind of open a door in your deep brain. So the basement, we go down to the basement, we open a door and we peek in and we say, okay, what's in here? What's making us sick? And we sit with it. And so I will have people find the brain spot where maybe they feel the most activated. They feel a lot of the physical symptoms of panic. Sometimes they'll feel like crying. They'll have weight in their chest or a pain in their shoulder or in their knee. Anything like that can come up. Tunnel vision happens there. And then we will hold it in that spot, sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes for 60 minutes. It really just depends on the person and what they need and how their brain processes. But essentially, it helps work out that physical location in the body where the trauma is stored. Because if we sit with it intentionally, we allow our body's natural process to deal with it on its own. And so people don't have to tell me their trauma if they don't want to. If it's hard to talk about it or if they're not able to kind of verbalize it, great, you don't have to. I will provide the safe space and I will sit there with you in it while your body does the work for you. It's self-healing. It's really, really cool to see. It's amazing, actually. And I feel very, very grateful that I get to walk through that door with people and help them deal with like sometimes some of the darkest things that they've experienced in their lives that they've just kind of shoved into the basement and pretended like it didn't exist anymore. And then when we actually deal with it, that physical symptom lightens up a little bit. And so I will have you talk about MFR and what your experience is with that too. But for a lot of people, they will have actual physical pain that then lightens up once we have kind of worked through whatever that traumatic experience was. Headaches, back pain, knee pain. Like, for example, it was a few years ago, I had a client who was in a pretty intense car accident, was healed, physically healed by the time they got to me, but knee pain would pop up whenever we were doing the brain spotting session, and it got easier, it got lighter every time we did it, and now eventually it's just gone. So things like that are pretty common. It's like we're both dealing with the nervous system from a different angle, right? I'm like, let's do this from an emotional angle and process with your eye positioning and kind of unlocking those doors. And you are, I mean, how I interpret it, you're creating a safe space in a different way for the body to like let go, to let go of it. It holds on to it so tightly for safety purposes.
Most people need things hit from different angles at different points in time. So it's like as you're going through healing from something, MFRs, for 6 months you're going through that. Well, maybe now you need to talk to somebody about it and you need to incorporate mental health counseling with it. And then maybe once you're through that and you're ready to like create some more physical change, maybe you need to go to a personal trainer and figure out how to work through things that way. So it's definitely good to have all of those different resources for your clients or your patients to be able to hand them off to people that you trust and say, hey, you need something a little bit different than what's in my scope. So here's this person. As you were describing as you were describing the brain spotting, it was like, yeah, super similar. It's just a little bit more passive, I think, than the brain spotting. When they come in for MFR on the table, it's like, just allow whatever pops up to pop up. Don't question it. You don't have to explain. You can just experience it, acknowledge that it's there, and allow it to pass. There's definitely something about
Yeah.
the body wants to be able to feel and acknowledge what's there to be able to let it go. So I keep referring back to this book, and people are probably going to get tired of hearing it, but I'm like in the midst of reading Body Keeps the Score. So they talk about that a lot, about how it's like you almost have to feel it briefly, but also trusting that your brain's not going to allow you to feel or experience anything that is going to harm you, which is why it tends to shut off and
Yeah.
push it back in the moment anyways. But yeah, it's so similar in that with the brain spotting, people will have similar experiences. They'll have sometimes they'll have pain come up, sometimes they'll have different sensations in the body, sometimes there will be twitching, sometimes they'll have a memory or
Mhm.
emotion come up. It varies so much person to person. I think everybody processes things a little bit differently. So that's part of it too. But yeah, there's the similarities are wild, but definitely with what Ethany does, there's that component of if you need to talk about it, if you need someone to resource you in that way, she's able to do that. So I love being able to refer people to having that sort of support too.
Absolutely, yeah. It's such a interesting and different approach, and not very many people know about it. Most people have heard of EMDR, which is similar in that it uses rapid eye movement. It doesn't have to. It can also use, like, some EMDR therapists will use, like, vibrating plates that are kind of bouncing back and forth. You've probably heard of, like, bilateral stimulation music, music that you listen to in headphones that's, like, moving from the right to the left. And so any type of things like that, even, like, tapping right to left, EMDR therapists will use sometimes, but it basically kinda moves over the brain spot, and so it's less focused on the direct door that we're kind of opening in the basement, and it's very structured, which for some clients, they may like. They may need that. They like the structure of it. I am not EMDR trained specifically. I'm only brain spotting trained. So I'll speak to this as well as I can, but there's a specific script that you kind of follow with EMDR. I prefer brain spotting because it's very client led. I kind of just go wherever your body is ready to go, if that makes sense. I follow whatever is coming up. We just kind of go with it. And I've really, really, really found that I like that a lot. And my clients seem to like that too. Most people are nervous at first because it's kind of an unknown thing. It's a little scary. It's intimidating. A lot of people say, am I doing this right? You cannot do it wrong. It's very brain body based, just like EMDR is, but the brain spotting is very client led.
I have experienced EMDR before, and I get what you're saying about the structure of it and how you described it. That's how I kind of feel about MFR in the body work world. It's a little bit more client led. It's not so much like we're going to work on the shoulder now or we're going to do this protocol. It's very much like you're reading into the person's body.
With brain spotting, attunement is a very, very, very important piece. So, feeling naturally attuned to the client in the session even is key. We have to have that piece of attunement. We have to feel like kind of like partnered up, and attunement goes beyond just feeling like somebody's on my side. It's our nervous systems really reading each other. And so, for example, this is maybe going to sound wild to some of our listeners. I know it won't sound wild to you, but sometimes I will experience whatever physical symptoms my clients are experiencing. So I am watching the client and I am reading all the little tiny nervous system cues, and I'm watching their little waves come up in their emotion, and then they process it, and we call it like squeezing out all the activation, squeeze that lemon and work all that activation out. So I'm watching them do all of this. And sometimes I really will physically experience whatever it is they are experiencing. Sometimes I will clock it before they do, which is just wild. Like, I sometimes will get really hot in sessions. And mind you, I'm not moving or talking. I am literally just staring at them while they stare at a pointer and they process through their stuff. They can talk as much as they want, but I'm usually saying very little. And so sometimes I'll get really hot. One kind of funny example, when I was at the last practice that I worked at, I had a client that every time I worked with her, my body would want to turn left, which was toward the door. I'm during brain spotting sessions, I'm kind of noticing what's going on for me. Am I experiencing some of the same kind of symptoms that they are experiencing? And she afterwards was like, yeah, my body kept wanting to turn. And I was like, there it is. Yeah.
Get
My nervous system
confirmation.
was reading that from you. And so I didn't move, but it was this urge to just want to look away or turn away. It's really interesting. And so attunement is a really big piece of what I do, which, probably sounds exhausting if I'm attuned and feeling those things all day, but we work very hard to take good care of ourselves, I promise. But I am very curious about attunement on your side of it.
Yeah, definitely super similar to what you described. In the Barnes training, I would say that's probably comparable to where they talk about tuning into different channels. Say channel 3 is the news. You would call it probably like the attic. Tuning into channel 3 where you're
Yeah.
tapped a little bit more into your intuition, the more subtle things that are happening, and you allow that connection to happen between you and the client. I think also if somebody is kind of naturally intuitive or naturally more empathic, it's a little bit easier, like when we're connecting and guiding people through things, to tune into them like that. But it's definitely something that everyone's capable of doing that. I think, if you walk into a room where someone's been arguing and you walk in, you go, oh, something's off. There's something feels a little weird here. Something just happened. It's that sort of thing. But when you're engaged with a client or a patient in a session, you're doing it a little bit more intentionally. Like you're creating the space for that to happen. And that does really help when we're picking up on those signals from people. That kind of guides us into what direction to take them, right? So everything you described with the brain spotting really is like almost exactly what happens in the myofascial sessions that I do. So it's so interesting how it's like working it from the different angles. Another thing I wanted to ask was what can people expect after sessions? Because I know for my clients, I try to
Mm.
explain to them that sometimes as you're processing things, there's periods where you're not so comfortable or you might feel detoxy. So I was just curious if it was similar to myofascial sessions.
Yeah, that's actually a great question. It is very similar. I probably give the same advice that you do. Drink plenty of water after this, eat a decent meal. It's like the basic self-care stuff that we could always be doing better with, but being really intentional about that. I do try to have people schedule their brain spotting when they don't have something immediately right after. Like, I don't want you to have to go right back to work and give a presentation. You can go back to work if you're doing more admin-y behind the scenes type stuff, but I'd really prefer it if you didn't kind of thing. So yeah, I'll people are often surprised when I'm like, drink a lot of water today. Make sure you allow for plenty of sleep tonight, that sort of thing. Most of the time, people will just feel tired that day, just a little more sleepy, whether they did the resource spot that feels very calm, or if we did go kind of into the basement and did some deeper work, they'll usually feel pretty tired. Some people will feel a little like out of it for half an hour to an hour. Nothing scary, nothing dangerous. You can still drive. You'll just feel a little dissociated, maybe a little kind of checked out, which we all can do. We can all experience that. It's again just a coping mechanism that our brains give us to kind of separate us from the trauma so that we
Mm.
can function in normal society. Some people say that colors look different, like either are more vibrant or muted. There are a lot of like visual things that happen during brain spotting. Like just this morning, somebody said that the whole room went into like this hazy fog, like a white hazy fog kind of situation. Totally normal, and so that goes away, and again, it's nothing dangerous. It's really just, like, your nervous system trying to adjust to this new state of being because you've done a lot of work in a very short amount of time, and so you can expect to feel a little weird for a little bit, but again, nothing dangerous, nothing to be concerned about. It usually goes away, but sometimes people will also process for up to 48 hours after a session. And so that means random memories may jump into their head. They may just out of nowhere have an emotion pop up. It could be a positive emotion. Just they're like, where did that come from? I have no idea what's happening. That stuff can be expected. Most of the time, you mentioned earlier, our brain won't give us too much. Like it's going to hold back what it thinks, it needs to protect us. So most of the time, people don't flood afterwards. They may feel a little more on edge earlier on in brain spotting sessions, but as we continue to work through it that usually goes away. Might feel just a little extra sensitive for a day or so. It usually evens out and then you kind of go back to normal operating procedures. But with less trauma that your body is holding on to, ideally.
How do people know, or what are some things that can give people signals that "Hey, maybe I should go in and get some sort of trauma informed mental health support?"
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. A lot of the symptoms that sometimes people don't even mention to me because they don't think it's related. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about some of those symptoms just to look out for. I will add a little disclaimer onto the beginning of this. Always start with your primary care physician. Some of these, especially like a cardiac event, a panic attack can often feel like a heart attack and it's not. And so a lot of people will go to the emergency room saying, I am having a heart attack. And the doctors check everything out and they're like, you are not having a heart attack. That's probably when I come in. And so things like that. Definitely any physical symptoms, we do need to rule out other causes first. But I still want to kind of run through these because sometimes people just don't know that it could be related. So things like any kind of chronic pain, GI issues, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. A lot of doctors will do, a full workup, run all sorts of tests and samples and say, physically your GI tract is very healthy. Oftentimes they will put patients on an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety as those have been shown to help, and this is why. This is why it's been shown to help because it's more related to mental health than it is like a mechanical issue. So GI issues, upset stomach, when we get really, really anxious, our vagus nerve that runs straight from our brain to our stomach is overly activated. And one thing to look out for is like diarrhea, constipation, stomach aches, cramping. A lot of things like that can be going on and can definitely be related. Blood pressure, again, some cardiac events, smaller things like excessive sweating. People don't realize that excessive sweating can be a symptom of being in fight or flight mode, kind of chronic fight or flight. I've literally worked with people that were in the military that were just sweating through their shirts. Like, I had a client who had to take extra shirts to work because they were sweating through their clothes every day. And once we kind of did 6 months of brain spotting, one shirt a day is fine. And so some things I know, right? Some things like that you would just never guess. Cold hands and feet. If your hands are kind of chronically cold or you're always like, why are my feet freezing all the time? It could be that when we are in fight or flight mode, our body kind of hoards heat in our torso to kind of protect our vital organs. That means our hands and our feet can get cold, or our nose and our ears. Low appetite. Again, when we go into fight or flight mode, our body shuts down these other non-essential processes, essentially, and things can get backed up in our GI tract. We lose our appetite. Sleep becomes, what is that? We don't need that. We're trying to survive here. So yeah, low appetite, headaches, jaw clenching, which can lead to headaches also, pelvic hip tension, really like any kind of tension in the body could be related. Yeah, it's a lot of these random little things that most people would never guess could be better explained by or caused by a mental health event or events. And even in sessions, I'll have people say, when I look this way, my head hurts over here. But then when I look this way, it's gone. And so it's really, really interesting just how interconnected our physical and our emotional health really are.
Yeah, and I would say that the majority of the people that come in to me have the same issues. Sometimes it's multiple, sometimes it's just one thing or the other, and they're just like, why do I
Mhm.
keep feeling this way? Another one I notice is people that have had previous accidents, injuries, or surgeries still
Mhm.
experience pain in the same area. And usually after about 6 months, it shouldn't be hanging around like that. So sometimes it's just like getting
Sure.
your brain like loops through it and it almost forgets how to
Yeah.
feel normal. So sometimes it's just doing things like this kind of like shock your brain into, oh, this is where we're at in the present moment. We're not hanging out, with whatever happened 3 years ago, 5 years ago. So
Mhm.
I love that you brought all those up because again, and I've experienced these for myself as well.
Mhm.
In doing the EMDR and mental health stuff for myself, I discovered that I have CPTSD and it explains so much of the physical issues that I've had through my life. And some of those I've worked through with the combination of EMDR and myofascial release and just being mindful, working on myself and that awareness component, right? So
Yeah.
you talked about possibly demonstrating resourcing exercise, which I would
Yeah.
love for you to lead us through that.
Absolutely. Yes. So, because we are virtual, I won't be using the pointer today. It can be used if we are kind of both in a situation where we're both using like a laptop at the same time. A laptop has kind of a wider range for eye positioning, but I will walk you through what is called gaze spotting. And so we're going to kind of manipulate where your gaze is landing in the room. Going to help you find your resource spot today. We'll hang there for a few minutes, but if you feel comfortable sharing just kind of as you're going through, like, hey, I'm noticing this when I look this way, or as I move across the room, I'm noticing more of this. Whatever it is, you may have heat changes. You might feel cold looking one direction versus another. You might be twitchy looking one direction or up or down. We're going to move through all of that together. So whatever you do notice, if you would feel comfortable sharing, I think that could be really helpful for the listeners and the viewers. It is safe to do gaze spotting on your own, going toward your resource spot. I usually don't recommend people hang out in their brain spot on their own, just because the attunement piece is really important. You need to kind of have that person grounding you to feel safe enough to kind of process in your brain spot specifically. Resource is totally safe. You can absolutely do it. Obviously, all day long, we're constantly moving over our brain spots and our resource spots anyway, and we kind of can't avoid that. But if we're being intentional about it, resource on your own. So, yeah, so I will invite you to get yourself comfortable. You don't have to worry about like where I am or looking at me. So you can almost ignore me. What I'll have you do, and I call this home base, I'm going to have you just kind of rest your gaze looking straight ahead of you. Find a position on the wall or on your desk, whatever is right in front of you that you can kind of remember and kind of mark as home base. It's eye level right in front of you. Okay. Just take in a nice deep breath, and then I'm going to have you check in with your body and just see if you notice anything. Maybe an ache or pain, maybe tingling in your hand and your feet, just anything that you might notice. What's
It's
coming
hard to
up
stay
here for
focused
you,
on
if
one
anything?
spot.
Yes, yes, it can definitely be hard to stay focused. This is new for most people, and so it's a bit clunky in the beginning, I think. What else are you noticing, if anything?
Back of my legs, just how they're pressed against the chair. And then my left shoulder, which has been giving me issues the past couple of weeks.
Okay. How would you rate that uncomfortability in your shoulder? If 10 is the most uncomfortable it could ever feel, where do you feel like you're at?
3.
Okay. So note that tension in your shoulder. And what I'm going to have you do is stay on your eye sight line and just slide your eyes a few feet to the left. So eye level looking to the left. Find a spot over there that you can also kind of rest your gaze on. And then I want you to do the same thing. Check in with your body, check in with that shoulder pain. Is it any different over there, or does it feel about the same?
Yeah, initially there was a slight twitch in my arm shoulder area. And then I can feel the tension from the muscles in my neck, and also I am getting warm.
Okay. So would you rate this spot a little higher on the intensity scale?
Yeah, it's probably 4 or 5 as far as noticeability.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that side is more than likely the brain spot side. So I'm going to invite you to come back to home base, looking straight ahead of you, then do another check in. Did it change or go back down as you move back to the middle?
There's still an awareness. Yeah, there's still an awareness there, but I don't feel the temperature like I did previously.
Okay. We're going to do the same thing, but moving your eyesight a few feet to the right. So eye level directly to your right. Find a space over there to kind of rest your gaze on. And do the same thing. Check in with your body. What do you notice here emotionally, physically?
There's a little bit of a temperature shift and some pulsing like in the top of my head, but it's nothing unpleasant.
You just notice it.
Hmm.
Okay. How would you rate that uncomfortability in your arm?
0. I didn't even notice that I was focused on the other sensation.
Yeah. Okay. So 0 for the arm. The other sensations are not uncomfortable or unpleasant.
Right.
Are they neutral, would you say?
Yeah, it's neutral.
Okay. All right. Would you feel okay and comfortable to stay on the right side?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to have you look up to your right slightly. So go a few feet up from where you're looking currently. Just do the same thing. Kind of check in with your body. Notice that pulsing in your head you were talking about. Is it any different there?
I'm not really noticing too much of anything at this point.
Hmm.
Everything feels pretty neutral.
Okay. Yeah. Just for the sake of being thorough, let's check bottom right. So looking down into your right.
So I
What do you notice there?
notice, yeah, some tension here in my face and sinuses and kind of moving back into that temperature shift where things feel warm in my body.
Okay. So I think up to the right is probably where we're going to find your resource spot. And
Okay.
so if you feel comfortable, I'll invite you to kind of come back up to the right. It brings you kind of back to baseline up there. And we'll just spend a minute or two there. Just want you to share, if you feel comfortable, what you're noticing, and just that the shift from when you moved from bottom right up to top right, what that was like for you.
Yeah, there's definitely an ease to it. I know that when I speak or when I'm doing things, my eyes are moving around a lot. And I almost wonder if this is a spot that I move to a lot just naturally. Because, yeah, like going down versus up, like looking up to the right just feels very natural and very easeful and comfortable.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. You can always revisit this spot. This is your resource location, your eye positioning where your body kind of exits that fight or flight.
Hmm.
You can always revisit this intentionally if you want to. I am painfully aware of where my brain spot and my resource spots are all the time. And
Hmm.
sometimes I use the resource spot intentionally to kind of help regulate, help me slow down. We're always moving so quickly in life. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you can absolutely use this anytime you probably do go there naturally without even noticing.
Hmm. Yeah, that's that's very interesting. And it makes sense too with the eyes being directly connected to the brain in that way. It's like directly plugged in
Yeah,
there. So it makes sense eye movement in general, how that could connect to different parts of the brain and turn things on, turn things off.
sure. Yeah. How's that shoulder doing?
I'm not even noticing it.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's definitely
Yeah.
something to play around with at home. Um, Yeah, and just to reiterate, the resource spot is like the safe space, and the brain spot is kind of like the spicy area. Okay.
Yes, yeah, the spicy area, I like that. Yeah, the brain spot is usually yours is probably down to the left, if I had to guess. For whatever reason, and I don't think any of my trainers mentioned this is just what I've noticed in my own practice, that if resource is up here, somebody's brain spot's probably exactly opposite of that. So it's
Huh.
kind of like if looking straight up is brain spot, looking straight down in front of them is resource. And so it is not always an exact science, but I would say 95% of the time that's the case. Couldn't tell you why, but that's just kind of what I found. And so if I had to guess, I would say that your body is holding on to some tension in your shoulder if and when you look down to the left, it's activating that more
Mhm.
so for you. Yeah, it's very interesting stuff.
Yeah, brains and bodies are just so fascinating. It's like the complexity of it, but there's also a simplicity to it as well. Like if you think of, well, the opposite ends of like this is one extreme and this is the other extreme, that kind of makes sense with what you're noticing in the patterns with your clients, with where their brain spot is and where their resource
Mhm.
spot is. Like, of course, that makes perfect sense
Yeah.
to me when you break it down like that. So that is really interesting. It does feel similar to doing like somatic work or doing MFR on myself. I did a
Mhm.
video, I think I posted a couple of days ago, where I kind of took myself into an unwinding and I was kind of describing the different sensations that I
Yeah.
was having during it. So, like, part of it is body awareness too. I think, like, connecting those points where, oh, when I'm in this position or when my eyes are in this position, this part is activated in my body.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. The resource spot, or there's another one called body resource,
Mhm.
where you kind of identify where in my body do I feel the most calm, the most relaxed, the
Mhm.
most grounded, any of those.
Yeah.
And you can kind of check in with that part of your body. It could be your pinky toe, but we all have a body resource. And so it's similar to your eye positioning. We can
Mhm.
kind of check in with that too. It's very the mind body connection. Um, yeah, I've seen people just have so much more insight into what's going on in their own bodies after this kind of work. Doing MFR, doing brain spotting, both. So yeah, it's very cool to see.
Yeah, I love that resource spot exercise is so simple, but I can see how it can be so helpful for people just on an everyday. So How
Yeah.
do people get a hold of you if they wanted to connect with you for your services?
Sure. Yeah. Well, probably it's easiest, I would say, to go to my website. That is www.ccatherapy.com. That stands for Circle City Alliance Therapy and Consulting. You can find me there. You can actually look right at my calendar on the website and schedule yourself. And then the system will automatically send you all of the new client paperwork. It's very convenient, very nice. You can also text or call my main business line. That number is 317-360-5864. Yeah, you can find me on the main socials. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. TikTok is CCA Therapy. And Instagram is CCA Therapist. And so, yeah, I'm very easy to find. If you Google my name, you will find me as well. So it's very easy to find an Ethany Michaud running around in the world. So yeah, if all else fails and you forget what the website is, just look up Ethany. Bethany without the B, you'll find me.
That's a good way to remember. So you do virtual, which is awesome. I love that these
Yeah.
types of services can be virtual as well. So do you only serve Indiana, or do you have like are you able to like connect with people in other
Mhm.
states?
Yeah, so right now I am licensed in Indiana, Ohio, and Florida. So I do see clients virtually that are physically located in Ohio and Florida. I can see clients anywhere in Indianapolis or Indiana virtually, but I can also see clients if they wish to come in person to my Northwest Indianapolis office as well. Probably will be getting licensed in Illinois too soon, but not quite there yet.
Are the licensing requirements different for every state?
They are, yeah. Interestingly, Florida was very easy to get a reciprocal license in. It was a very quick application process and then they approved it. Ohio, I had to drive there and do fingerprints. So they ran a background check. It was a lengthier application process. I tried California because I had a client moving out there that wanted to continue with me. Their requirements are like their baseline requirements are actually higher than Indiana's. And so I would have needed to go back to school, interestingly enough, for that.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, every state is very different. We are working on a licensure compact, but that's probably a few years out still, just because it's moving through the judicial system and it takes a while to get all that stuff passed into law. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's similar with massage therapy. We actually in Indiana just moved from
Mm.
certification to licensure, but then every state has its own requirements for you to be able
Yeah.
to do massage as well. That makes sense. All right. Well, if anyone in Indiana, Ohio, or Florida wants to connect with Ethany, there you go. So thank you so much for coming on here and chatting with me. It was such a good conversation. I always feel like we have really good conversations, but also very informative. And I love that you gave everyone a little resource to play around with on their own. So definitely
Yeah.
make sure anyone tuning in just stays connected on all the socials, the YouTube, the Spotify, the Instagram, and
Mhm.
we will be bringing forth some more content pretty soon. So thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms so you never miss a new episode. If you're a holistic or wellness provider or someone with a healing journey you feel called to share, we'd love to connect. Visit www.tjtbodywork.com to reach out. And please make sure to join us for the next episode of Transformative Talks.